Okay, our beloveds, so we will now share a greater insight that we haven't shared before because our another was not ready, which meant that you all are not ready. Boo. What used to scare you before no longer scares you now because you are realizing what is real and what is not. Some things which scared you before are almost so irrelevant now that it is laughable. And yet there are other things that are so very real that they are actually more frightening than before because you realize what it is. So for example, for some of you, not having your hair properly coiffed, your nails done, and dressing appropriately was a horror show. But now in this new time of COVID, many of you are learning that it really doesn't matter as much. You are what you are on the inside and not your outer expression. And the reality is that most people are in the same boat as you, so nobody looks well put together. So that's where the boo is not nearly as big. Now, the bigger boo. Where are boos bigger now? And this is where our another is learning too. So for many of you who have had a particular mindset about COVID-19 are beginning to realize that it is really, really here and it's going to be sticking around. And when we say it is going to be sticking around, what we mean is its variants keep popping up like a whack-a-mole. And you hit one, but it pops up elsewhere because you are not learning your underlying lesson as much as you would need to in order for the universe to allow this pandemic to peter out. And our another, because she is so highly intuitive and spends so much time going within with us each day, is stupefied, if we're honest, at the stupidity, and yes, the stupidity of humanity, because she sees the evidence as being so obvious, and that so many of you cannot see this and continue to engage in the reckless behavior that you are, which is not necessarily getting together in parties where the COVID passes, but more that you all continue to desire to return to your former life when it is never coming back. We are here to teach you all that you are moving into a new vibration. And while our another is sharing this with those very few people who seem to be listening to her message, the perspective of humanity is, let us put our heads in the proverbial sand and pretend that we can return back to normal. And she is just simply stupefied that these other people come from the same species that she comes from, which is the human race. She has always been one who has been curious and finds patterns to find the solution out of wherever she is at. When her phone glitches in a particular way, she will play with it in order to find the solution rather than complaining about having a poor device. There's always a way to find a workaround if you just play with the system enough. And this is her mindset, and she is beginning to realize that many of you do not have the same interest, and it truly stupefies her because she doesn't think that she is any smarter or more intuitive than anybody else. And if she can find this solution, why aren't others able to do so? So this is our message today. Boo! Find the things that are real, the harms, the worries, the dangers that are real. Find the patterns within your unique life and the workaround, the solution, and where there is no problem, where the boo no longer scares you, focus not on those things because they are not part of the underlying risk that needs to be assessed right now. Figure out why you and your loved ones have stressors in your lives. What are the cosmic lessons that you yourself are going through in a spin cycle, if we may add, because you haven't figured out what specifically it is that you are triggering and what specifically it is that you need to do in order to pull out of that learning cycle. And for your beloved ones around you, to see them as they really are, as human beings who are going through the same evolutionary or adaptive process with this COVID-19. Now, our another was asked a beautiful question the other day, which she does not have an answer to yet, but she will soon. And the question there is for those who have actually had an active case of COVID versus the vaccine itself. If you had COVID in its raw form, how did that change you? And not from a perspective of what were your learning opportunities, but how has COVID changed you forever from a DNA perspective? Because when you get this virus, your body creates antibodies and makes you more resilient, but it also affects and impacts your body in other more negative ways as you would see it. It may affect certain organs within your body or other aspects of you. And that is the piece that has not been researched yet enough. Because you all are so worried about stalling the pandemic, and rightfully so, you haven't spent any valuable time yet in measuring how it actually affects or impacts the human body going forward. And this is going to be the most amazing realization for your scientists, that this COVID will change you in a profound way that you have not realized yet, and will help to prepare you for this new energetic imprint that you are going into. And we're not going to share how or why this is. It is for your scientists to figure out in the coming years. But what we can tell you is that there are important markers hidden within the biometric changes within your body. So, happy Easter egg hunting, finding those eggs of knowledge that have been hidden up to now, but are being exposed in plain sight for you, our beloved Easter egg hunters, to go out and gather and explore with great interest. And so it is. Namaste.